Hey guys, tonight we're heading way back, way back, into a world with no ovens, no grills, no air fryers, just teeth, hunger, and a lot of very questionable meals. Because tonight, we're stepping into life before humans cooked food. You're crouched in tall grass, chewing on the end of something vaguely root-like. It tastes like dirt soaked in bitterness, with the texture of old rope. You're not sure it's food, but you're hungrier than you are picky. There's no smoke in the air, no fire to warm your hands or roast your dinner. Just cold wind, wet earth, and a mouthful of raw. And you, dear listener, you probably wouldn't survive this. The food's tough. Your stomach isn't used to half-rotten meat. And your jaw? It's about to get a full workout. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Tell me where you're watching from and what time it is. I always love knowing who else is out there stargazing in their pajamas. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You tear into a raw tuber. It's not good, it's not even okay, it's just necessary. You chew, and chew, and chew. It takes forever to break down. Your jaw aches, your throat resists, but you swallow, because that's the price of staying upright another day. Mealtime isn't an event, it's survival, blunt, flavorless, exhausting. And meat? Let's just say your options are less than ideal. You eat what you can catch, or what's already dead, which means it's often cold, slimy, a little fuzzy, and it fights you back in every way but literally. Here's your mainstream historical fact. Before the controlled use of fire, early humans relied entirely on raw, unprocessed foods, roots, fruit, nuts, bugs, and raw meat scavenged or hunted. Cooking hadn't yet entered the chat, and your digestive system did all the work. Your teeth are wide and flat, capable of crushing nuts and grinding tough fiber. But they're not invincible. Every meal is a test of endurance. And your jaw? It's huge, like, cartoonishly strong, because you need it to pulverize whatever edible nightmare you've decided to gnaw on today. Fringe tidbit? Some anthropologists believe early hominins may have spent more than 6 hours per day just chewing. You're basically a biological blender. And not a quiet one. Historians still argue whether raw diets alone could have supported the kind of brain growth we see later on, or if cooking was the turning point in human evolution. Some say raw was enough, barely. Others believe the body was constantly on the edge of breakdown. You're starting to feel it. After that last bite of bark-wrapped bitterness, your gut cramps a little. It doesn't want to digest this mess. Your body groans under the effort. But there's no other choice. You eat, or you fade. And you dream, not of fire. Because you've never seen it used that way, but of ease. Of food that doesn't fight. Of meat that tears apart instead of clinging like sinew to bone. Of roots that don't bite back. But for now, you keep chewing. You chew until your jaw clicks. You chew until your throat dries. You chew because it's the only thing keeping you from disappearing. And tomorrow, you'll do it all again. Because before humans cooked food, chewing was life. The sun hasn't risen yet, but you're already moving. Your stomach growled hours ago. That dull, hollow ache, it never really leaves. Hunger isn't a wave, it's a background noise, always there, just loud enough to remind you that every bite counts. You're foraging now, not casually strolling through an Instagrammable forest with a basket and a smile. No, you're digging with both hands. Dirt caked beneath your nails. Knees in cold mud. Eyes darting for movement. Something edible. Anything. Really. You claw through tree bark. You lift heavy stones, hoping for bugs beneath. You follow the scent of rot, not because it smells good, but because where things decay, things feed. And maybe you can, too. You tug a fibrous stalk from the ground. It resists like it's insulted. You rip it in half and suck out the bitter juice. It burns slightly. Your lips go numb. Could be poison. Could be dinner. There's no label. Here's your mainstream fact. Before cooking, Early humans relied entirely on raw forage resources, fruits, leaves, roots, seeds, and insects. It was a daily gamble. No supermarket safety net, no fire to purify, just instinct, memory, and trial by digestive disaster. And not everything you find is a prize. Some things bite back, sharp thorns, poisonous mold, beetles that squirt you in the eye. One time, you cracked open a root and it screamed. Okay, it hissed, but in your hungry, anxious mind, it might as well have cursed you. Fringe tidbit? Some researchers believe early humans developed specific foraging paths, almost like edible memory maps, knowing exactly where certain plants grew, in what season, and what color meant, don't eat unless you're desperate. You're learning your map now. Slowly. Through unfortunate accidents. You chew on a leaf you think you've had before. It numbs your tongue. You spit it out. You do not want to relive the day you couldn't see straight for half an afternoon. Historians still argue whether early foragers used trial and error learning individually or relied on shared group memory. Did one person make all the bad calls and warn the others? Or did everyone have to suffer through their own bug buffet phase? Today, you're alone, so it's all on you. You spot a tree with a cluster of odd red pods. You sniff, lick, wait, nothing happens. You nibble, still alive, so you chew slowly, watching the tree sway, listening for any signs of doom. It's sour, but not awful. You eat 3. You'll eat 4 if your stomach agrees in an hour. You scrape moss from a stone, mash a handful of beetles, and pull apart a fungal cluster the size of your fist. That's lunch. It's not a feast. It's not even pleasant, but it's food. Sort of. Later, you sit beside a muddy stream and suck on a stick. Not for flavor, but because your jaw still won't let go of the chewing habit. Your teeth hurt. Your belly's uneasy. But you made it. This is the rhythm. Forage. Test. Hope. Survive. And as the sun sets behind the distant trees, you stare at your hands, scraped, dirty, sore, and you wonder what it would be like if the food just softened. Just once. What if it warmed you as you ate it? What if it didn't fight back? But you don't know that yet. You just lick your fingers, take a shaky breath, and chew another bitter stem. Your jaw clicks again. You wince, massage the sore hinge just below your ear, and keep chewing. This root's no better than yesterday's, fibrous, stringy, tasteless. You could probably braid it into rope if your stomach wasn't so insistent on digesting it first. Your teeth feel like blunt tools now. Worn, abused, overworked. And they are. Because when food doesn't soften, you had to do the softening. Every bite is labor. Every meal, a workout. You glance across the clearing at an older member of your group. Their teeth are ground down nearly flat. One is missing. Their gums bleed sometimes when they gnaw bark too hard. Still, they chew. Because stopping? That's not an option. Here's your historical fact. Before cooking, human jaws were larger and stronger, designed to crush, mash, and rip through raw plant fibers and uncooked meat. Our skulls looked different, less delicate, more brute force. Your ancestors had to work for every calorie. And you're starting to feel that legacy in your own face. You crack a nut between 2 stones. It slips and bounces into the dirt. You curse, well, not in words, but in that guttural, frustrated huff you make when you're tired and hungry and life is just slightly worse than usual. You pick it up, bite too hard, chip a piece of tooth. You freeze, then spit it out, stare at it in your palm. It's small, jagged, pale, definitely yours. You laugh. It's that weird, breathless kind of laugh that sounds more like surrender. Fringe tidbit. In some fossil records, scientists have found jawbones with multiple abscesses, worn enamel, and signs of chronic chewing trauma, even in individuals as young as their early 20s. Teeth weren't forever. They were tools, and they broke. You hold the tooth, then throw it into the bushes. One less thing rattling around your mouth. Dinner isn't a social event. It's not a gathering. It's not even done sitting down. You eat as you walk, as you dig, as you scrape bugs off tree trunks and crunch them before they wriggle away. You chew until your face hurts. Then switch sides and chew some more. Historians still argue whether early humans developed smaller jaws after cooking began, or whether changes in brain size prompted gentler diets. But whatever the cause, one thing's clear: you're not there yet. You're all muscle and molars. And neither feels up to the task. Someone nearby bites into something and yelps. Spits. They shake their head, then hand it to someone else to try. That's your quality control. If it doesn't kill the first taster, it might be okay. You miss the days before hunger was this loud. Except there were no other days. This is all you've ever known. Later, when the moon rises and the night wind tickles your tired face, you lie down on dry grass, your jaw sore, your belly half full, and your fingers stained from sap and soil. You run your tongue along your teeth. That missing chip already feels huge. And you wonder, just faintly, fleetingly, what it would be like to not have to chew so hard. To bite into something soft, warm, easy. But that's just fantasy. For now, you drift into sleep with a handful of uncooked tuber beside you. In case you wake hungry. Which you will. You always do. The sun cuts through the trees in pale yellow slices. And your breath comes out in tight puffs as you kneel beside a fresh carcass. It's not your kill. Something bigger brought it down, clawed it, bit it, left it half-eaten, and now you're here, quietly thankful, cautiously desperate. You poke the flesh, still warm, blood sticky and slow-moving. It smells sharp but not rotten. Yet, you tear a strip of meat with your hands. Then your teeth. It's tough, slippery. Your jaw protests immediately, but you chew because you must. Because this is protein. This is survival. And you don't know when the next lucky find will arrive. You gag slightly. The meat's too fresh in some places, too not fresh in others. Still, you chew. Here's your historical fact. Before fire, early humans consumed raw meat either from scavenging or hunting, risking exposure to dangerous bacteria, parasites, and spoilage. There was no safe middle ground, just hunger versus hazard. And the hazards? They're many. You remember the last time someone ate the wrong mushroom. Their belly swelled, eyes glassed over, breath turned ragged. They didn't move for 2 days. The entire group watched in silence, unsure whether to mourn or wait. They lived. Barely. Fringe tidbit. Some anthropologists believe that early humans may have instinctively copied animal behavior when identifying edible items, mimicking what chimps ate, or watching scavenger birds for clues, which is useful, until you realize vultures don't have the same digestive issues you do. Today, you've taken 2 bites of meat and one of something that might be a mushroom cap. You think it's the same kind you had last week, but your memory isn't confident. You nibble and wait. If your stomach doesn't rumble in protest, you'll eat more. You've learned that being hungry is painful, but being wrong can be fatal. Historians still argue whether early humans developed biological resistance to some pathogens or if constant illness was the cost of uncooked diets. Did our ancestors adapt, or simply survive despite the damage? You chew more slowly now. Your tongue tingles. You pause. Wait. Still here. No numbness. No ringing in your ears. Just meat. You swallow. And the act itself feels like an accomplishment. Someone nearby bites into a chunk of sinew and makes a face. They spit. You nod. Classic mistake. That part's nearly impossible to digest raw. But you'll eat it anyway if hunger gets worse. Later, you watch 2 others fight over a scrap of bone with fat still clinging to the edge. One growls. The other hisses. Neither wins. The bone cracks. Splinters flying. Both retreat with bleeding fingers. You step in and quietly pocket the bone chip. It tastes awful. You gnaw it until your jaw trembles. Then swallow. Grimacing. Every bite feels like a gamble. Every meal is either endurance or regret. And still, you do it. Every day. Because you have to. But somewhere, deep in the ache of your teeth and the churning of your stomach, a thought flickers like a far-off spark. There must be a better way. You lie down that night, belly tight with tension, breath shallow. You're not sick yet, but that doesn't mean you're safe. And your last thought before sleep is not about food. It's about fire, and what it might do. If only you could control it. You're standing in the rain, watching smoke rise from the far side of the hill. Not cooking smoke. You don't know that kind of smoke yet. This is the heavy, black kind, the kind that follows lightning. Something burned, maybe a tree, maybe an animal. You can smell the scorched wood on the wind. And something else, something strange. Your feet carry you toward it before your brain even catches up. The rain slows. The ground squishes beneath each step. And there, just past the twisted tree stump, you find it. Fire. Not alive, not crackling, not moving anymore. Just the ghost of it. Damp charcoal. Hot ash. A few glowing embers tucked beneath the bones of a fallen branch. You crouch. Extend a hand. Pull it back fast. It bites. You stare at your fingers. No wound. Just heat. A shock. But not unpleasant. Like the sun. Except here. Now. On the ground. And near the edge of the ash? A rabbit. Well, what used to be a rabbit? It's cooked, though you don't have that word yet. The fur is gone. The skin is split. And the meat, blackened at the edges, smells different. Less sour. Less bloody. Like something sweet and dark and strange. You poke it. Still warm. You sniff. You hesitate. And then, carefully, you bite. Here's your mainstream historical fact. Early humans likely encountered fire first as a natural phenomenon, wildfires sparked by lightning, volcanic activity, or spontaneous combustion, and only later learned to interact with it. Before control came contact. Before cooking came curiosity. Fringe tidbit. Some researchers believe the first exposure to roasted meat may have come through scavenging animals killed in brush fires, already cooked by the time humans arrived. You're part of that moment now. The taste stops you, not because it's bad, but because it's not bad. Soft, smoky, easy to chew. Your jaw isn't protesting for once. Your stomach doesn't twist. You chew, swallow, pause. No pain, no gag, no regret. You reach for more. Historians still argue whether early humans recognized the benefits of cooked food before understanding fire itself. Did taste lead the way? Or was it warmth, texture, gut reaction? For you, it's all of it. You devour what's left of the rabbit. The burnt bits are bitter. But the middle is tender. Satisfying. You feel fuller than usual. Like your body isn't working so hard to break things down. You lick your fingers. You poke the ashes again. Just once. You don't know what it is yet. But you want more. And as the wind picks up, stirring the embers just enough to spark the faintest red glow, you don't run. You watch. The fire is gone. But the memory of it lingers. In the smell on your hands. The warmth on your face. The ease in your belly. You walk back to your group and say nothing. But your eyes keep drifting toward the sky, waiting for the next flash of lightning. Because now you need it to strike again. You've been thinking about that ember for days. The way it looked, the way it felt, hot but not dangerous, glowing but not alive. You replay it in your head like a song with no words. The memory of that rabbit, the smell of it, the strange ease of chewing, the warmth that spread through your chest afterward. Now, you're hunting fire. Well, more like following it. You don't know how to make it yet, but you've started noticing the signs. The smell of dry leaves before a storm. The way the sky flashes and everything goes still. The sizzling sound of rain on burning bark. You wander close to the last place lightning struck. You touch the blackened tree trunk, still warm on the inside. You press your palms against it and feel a pulse. No, not your pulse. It's. And suddenly, your instincts, those old friends of fight, freeze, or forage, add a new command. Don't let this disappear. You crouch down and scoop some embers into a thick clump of bark and moss. You don't know what you're doing. You just hope it works. It doesn't. The moss smokes. Your fingers burn. You drop everything and hiss through your teeth, shaking your hand. Here's your mainstream historical fact. Humans likely learned to preserve natural fire before they ever learned to create it, guarding embers, transporting smoldering material, and feeding the flame to keep it alive. You've just failed at step 1. Fringe tidbit. Some researchers believe early hominins may have learned to maintain fire by accident, carrying burning sticks for light or defense, and only later realizing it could be used to process food. You're still firmly in the accidental arsonist phase. You try again. This time you dig a shallow pit, line it with bark, and pile leaves gently on top. You place one hot coal in the center using 2 sticks like awkward tongs. It smokes. It sighs. Then, for a flickering moment, it glows. You freeze, not in fear, in awe. Because you've done something. You feed it more leaves. A little spark jumps. You clap your hands softly. Giddy. Then the wind gusts. The whole thing catches too fast. And your beautiful baby flame becomes a chaotic, dangerous flare. You panic. You stamp it out. Ash blows in your eyes. Your foot scorches slightly. You fall backward into the dirt, coughing and blinking, heart pounding. Historians still argue whether early humans respected fire like a god or feared it like a monster. It probably felt like both. To you, it's both. It can feed you. It can kill you. It can change you. That night, you tell no one about your burn, but you wrap your fingers in woven leaves and fall asleep staring at the stars, wondering how long it will take before you can try again. Because now, the food you used to eat, raw, bitter, hard, disappoints you. You know something better is possible. You've tasted it, and once your body knows a gentler way to survive, there's no going back. You wake early, earlier than anyone else, and your first thought isn't food, or weather, or even danger. It's fire. Specifically, the taste it left in your mouth. The way the rabbit's flesh melted instead of fought. You didn't know food could do that. It didn't just fill you, it comforted you. Made your belly feel like it belonged to someone smarter. Someone evolved. So you try again. You return to the blackened stump. This time, more carefully. Bark, dry grass, a little moss, one ember stolen from last night's storm-scorched clearing. Your hands are steadier now. You blow gently. You talk to it. Whisper nothing words like you're coaxing a child to wake up. A glow. A curl of smoke. Then, just for a heartbeat, a flicker of flame. You almost cry. You don't. You're still you. But still. Here's your mainstream historical fact. Archaeological sites show that early humans likely began experimenting with cooking over fire as early as 1 to 1.5 million years ago. Long before matches, stoves, or even pottery existed, they didn't just stumble on it, they practiced. A lot. Fringe tidbit? Some scientists argue that the first cooked food was not meat but tubers, root vegetables left near embers or naturally fire-exposed earth, slowly transforming into edible softness. You're about to test that theory. With no idea you're doing science. You reach for a tuber. The kind you usually chew for hours until your jaw feels like it's been through a wrestling match. This time, you bury it near the coals. Cover it with ash. Wait. Well, try to wait. You poke it about 17 times. You sniff. You fidget. Your hands keep brushing your knees. And finally, you pull it out. It's warm. Steam rises faintly. You take a bite. And blink. It's sweet. Not sugary. Not dessert. But different. Like something has released inside it. The fibers break easily. Your jaw doesn't scream. Your gut doesn't churn. This is the moment. This is the turning point. You don't know the term, digestive efficiency. You've never heard of enzymes. But your body knows. It hums with relief. Historians still argue whether cooking was a biological revolution or a cultural one. Did it shape our guts first? Or our minds? For you, it's both. You cook a second tuber. And a third. You even sing. Sort of. A tuneless. Wordless hum that you've never done before. And then someone sees you. They tilt their head, sniff the air, watch your hands. You panic. You hide the food like it's treasure. Because it is. What if they take the ember? What if they burn it all wrong? But they just sit beside you. And wait. So you hand them a warm piece. They eat it slowly, eyes wide, and they smile. Not a big one, just a soft curl of the mouth. Like they, too, can feel the difference. You nod, they nod. No one speaks. But something sacred has passed between you. Something smoky, something warm, something cooked. You find yourself wandering places you never used to go, scorched clearings. Old lightning strikes. Dead trees that smell of ash and possibility. You're not looking for animals anymore. You're hunting heat. Because once you've tasted food touched by fire, your instincts shift. Raw feels like punishment. Cooked feels like progress. And you're not the only one catching on. Others start following you. They pretend not to, of course. But you see them, pacing at a distance. Watching your hands as you gather moss. The way you cradle coals in curled bark. One of them even tries to copy your movements. They burn their fingers, yelp, and pretend they meant to do that. You say nothing. Because deep down, a strange pride starts to bloom. Not arrogance, not superiority. Just knowing that you're part of something new. Something changing. Here's your historical fact. As humans began to associate natural fire with warmth and transformation, they gradually shifted from passive scavengers of flame to active seekers of burned areas, especially places where partially cooked food could be found. And you're learning that cooked food isn't always intentional. Sometimes, it's just lucky. You find a bird once, crisped from a grass fire. Still warm. You flinch at first. Dead things are usually sour smelling. Suspicious. But this smells like promise. You tear off a leg. The skin peels easily. The flesh beneath pulls apart with barely a tug. You offer some to the others. They hesitate. But then they taste. And something clicks. Fringe tidbit. In some animal species, like chimpanzees, individuals show a clear preference for cooked food when given a choice, even though they lack the ability to make it themselves. Preference without production. You're not far past that. Back at camp, things are shifting. Someone starts saving bark in a dry pouch. Another begins storing tubers in tree hollows, higher up, away from dampness and bugs. They're not cooking yet. Not really. But they're preparing. You all are. Because now, eating is no longer a scattered, frantic chew fest. It's becoming planned. Still primitive. Sure, but your bodies feel the difference. The day feels easier when your jaw isn't sore by mid-morning. When your gut doesn't revolt by sunset. When food slides down instead of sticking halfway through. Historians still argue whether the adoption of cooked food spread through imitation, cultural diffusion, or sheer trial and error. But your group doesn't need a theory. You're living it. And your evenings? They're quieter now. Not because there's less hunger, but because there's satisfaction. You chew slowly. You finish. You breathe. And when someone offers you a half-charred root with a shy smile, you take it, and nod, and say nothing. But deep inside, you're smiling, too. Because it tastes like something that wanted to be eaten. And suddenly, everything raw tastes a little more like a memory. You're crouched by a stream, watching smoke snake its way upward through the trees. It's not your fire. Which means, someone else has done it. Someone else has figured out how to keep it going. You freeze, not out of fear, but reverence. For days now, your own efforts have been hit or miss. Embers that die too fast. Sparks that fade in damp wind. You've tasted fire's gifts, but you haven't yet learned to hold them. And now, someone has. You walk toward the smoke slowly, like you're approaching a sleeping animal. Quiet feet, soft breath. There they are. A figure. Someone from the other end of your group, sitting beside a fire. Hunched and cautious, feeding it dry grass by the handful. They don't notice you at first. The flame demands all their attention. And when you finally step close enough to be heard, They look up. You don't speak. You just hold out a stick. They nod. Together, you learn something sacred. You can share fire. Here's your historical fact. Evidence suggests early humans began transporting embers by wrapping them in dried plant fibers or carrying them in hollowed wood, allowing them to move fire from one place to another long before they could create it at will. Fire wasn't made, it was guarded. And now, that's your mission. You spend the day feeding it, watching how it lives. It breathes in bursts, like it has moods. It dances when the wind stirs. It sulks when you ignore it too long. You whisper to it. You name it, well, not in words, but in your heart. Fringe tidbit. Some indigenous cultures still treat fire as a living being, a spirit that requires feeding, respect, and ritual. Even in its earliest days, fire wasn't just heat, it was presence. By nightfall, others gather. They don't ask questions. They don't have to. They bring roots, leaves, a small lizard. They set their offerings near the edge of the flames and wait. That's new, because before fire, food was just survival. Grab, chew, move on. But now it's an act. You watch someone tuck a root into the ashes with care, folding leaves around it, not for protection, for patience. That's the real secret. Fire doesn't just make food easier, it makes you wait for it. And in that waiting, something unexpected happens. You talk, you hum, you sit still, you notice each other. Historians still argue whether the invention of cooking directly led to the invention of culture, whether shared meals around fire were the spark for language, music, art. But tonight, sitting in the red glow with your fingers warmed and your belly not quite empty, it's hard to imagine otherwise. You take your cooked root from the coals. It's soft, warm, smoky, and as you eat, slowly, beside others doing the same, your body isn't just fed, it's calm. And for the first time in your short, sharp, hungry life, you don't feel like prey. You feel human. You keep the flame alive now. Not always perfectly, not always easily, but you've figured it out. How to nurse embers through the night. How to shield sparks from wind. How to find the driest leaves even when the forest is soaked and sulking. It's become a habit, like breathing, like eating. You wake and check it before anything else. You sleep with one eye open toward the glow. When someone gets too close, especially the little ones, you snap. Not out of cruelty, but caution. Because this is everything now. But you don't own it. At least, not yet. You start noticing others copying your movements. Carrying dry bark tucked in the folds of their tunics. Stealing glances when you coax the flame. You see the same gestures passed around like whispered secrets. And you feel something new. Not fear, not pride, power. Here's your historical fact. As mastery of fire spread among early human groups, control of flame became a point of influence. Those who could sustain it were often given status, protection, even reverence. You weren't just another body in the group. You were the one who fed the light. And people started noticing. They give you space when you step into a gathering. They sit a little closer when you're tending the fire. They offer you the best cuts from the hunt, half charred, half raw, unsure how long to leave it in the coals. But trying, learning. Fringe tidbit. In some early human settlements, archaeologists have found repeated burn patterns in specific circles, places that may have served not only as kitchens but as social centers. With certain individuals consistently near the flame, you're beginning to understand why. Because the fire doesn't just change the food, it changes you. You eat slower now. You chew less. Your stomach rarely twists. Your jaw aches less. You're calmer, more focused. You start to think ahead, to plan your next ember-carrying pouch, to pick roots before you need them, to bury meat near the edge of the coals while the fire's still hot, instead of scrambling for scraps at dusk. Historians still argue whether cooking caused the growth in human intelligence, or simply gave the brain more fuel to grow. Either way, you feel it, a little more space inside your mind, a little more room to think. But not everyone likes it. One night, A member of the group, someone older, gruffer, uncomfortable with how others look at you now, kicks dirt at your flame. You react fast, hands scooping, breath blowing, bark flapping. The fire sputters but lives. You stand between it and them, chest rising like a thundercloud. They back off, and no one says a word. But after that, the circle around the fire gets clearer, tighter. You build a small barrier with stones. Not big, just enough to say, "This matters." And when someone places their own root beside yours in the coals, they wait for your nod. That nod? That's the recipe. That's trust. That's the first agreement. You're not the only keeper of the flame. Not anymore. But you were the first to see what it could do. And now you're the one others look to, not just to eat better, to live better. Tonight, the fire crackles louder than usual. Maybe it's the wood. Maybe it's the dry grass twisted too tight. Maybe it's just that more people have gathered around it than ever before. There are no invitations, no assignments, but still, they come. One by one, they bring offerings, a root, a chunk of meat, a fistful of shiny seeds. Someone places a fish, wrapped in broad leaves, at the edge of the coals. Another gently fans smoke toward a tuber, like it's a sacred act. And you, keeper of the spark, watch it all unfold like a strange, wordless celebration. This isn't just eating anymore. It's sharing. Here's your historical fact. Some of the earliest archaeological signs of human cooperation revolve around fire pits, burned bones, charred tools, communal ash layers, indicating group meals. Not just solitary survival. The fire became the center. And humans began to gather around it not just for warmth, but for each other. Tonight, for the first time, someone offers you food, not raw, not from their own stash. It's a piece of roasted meat, singed at the edge, still steaming, pressed into your hands without a word. You nod, tear it in half, offer some back. They take it, and you both chew slowly, eyes half closed. Flames painting flickers on your faces, sharing the same bite, the same warmth, the same ancient instinct that says, "This is better together." Fringe tidbit: modern primates, especially chimpanzees, are rarely seen sharing food voluntarily. But in early humans, fire changed that dynamic. Cooking created surplus. Surplus made sharing possible. And sharing? It made bonds. The food tastes better now. Not just because it's softer or warmer, but because you didn't eat it alone. A small child toddles up, wide-eyed and curious. Someone hands them a sliver of roasted root. They take it, bite down, smile, and something clicks. A ritual is forming, not with chants, not with ceremony, but with repetition, a rhythm. You feed the fire. It feeds you. You feed each other. One of the older group members begins drawing shapes in the ash. Circles, spirals, lines that mimic smoke. The younger ones mimic them. Soon, the entire clearing smells like char. Feels like memory. Historians still argue whether these moments, these wordless gatherings, laid the foundation for culture. Was it storytelling, fire dancing, or just waiting for dinner that first taught us how to be human together? You don't need an answer. You just keep tending the flame. You move a tuber slightly closer to the center. You roll a cracked nut into the ash to test how it changes. And when someone accidentally burns their meal, you give them some of yours. Not because they asked, but because you can. And as the fire dies low and people drift to sleep, one by one, full and soot-smudged, you're the last to remain. You cover the embers. You whisper your tune. And for the first time, you think, maybe this isn't just survival anymore. Maybe this is the beginning of something deeper. Something warm. Something shared. Something like, home. The morning smells different now. Smoke clings to the leaves. Ash dusts the ground like soft gray snow. Even your skin carries the faint scent of warmth. Something cooked. Something controlled. Your body has changed, too. You're not as hungry all the time. You sleep more soundly. Your jaw doesn't ache. Your gut feels lighter. Not hollow, just calmer. You chew less. You think more. It's subtle, but undeniable. Here's your mainstream historical fact. As humans began regularly consuming cooked food, their digestive systems adapted. We developed smaller teeth, shorter intestines, and larger brains, thanks to the extra calories and easier digestion. Fire didn't just change dinner. It changed us. And you? You're proof. You catch yourself humming while you wait for roots to soften in the coals. You poke the fish with a stick, timing the way the fat bubbles. You notice which woods burn longer, which coals glow hotter. You're not just feeding yourself anymore, you're experimenting. Someone asks, with just a glance, if your pile of bark can spare a coal. You nod. They take it like it's precious metal. It is. You didn't mean to become the one who knows. It just happened, one ember at a time. Fringe tidbit. Some researchers believed cooking was the key that unlocked social time, allowing humans to spend less effort on chewing and digesting and more on bonding, learning, and imagining. Fewer hours spent gnawing meant more hours to be. And now, those hours fill with something new. You sit by the fire and notice shadows dancing. You start to see shapes in the smoke. A face, a beast, a story. Maybe, you can't quite tell, but you start telling anyway. You mimic the way the lizard leapt from the fire pit yesterday. Someone laughs. You slap your chest like a drum. More laughter. And just like that, you've invented the day's first performance. Later, someone draws the lizard in the ash with a charred stick. Someone else adds fire beneath it. You nod. This is fun? No. This is thought. This is creativity. This is what happens when your brain isn't being hijacked by hunger. Historians still argue whether cooking made us smarter, or if smarter humans figured out cooking. But around this fire, you feel it. Your mind is doing more than surviving. It's noticing. You carve notches in a stick to count the days since the last storm. You tie grass cords to remember which roots cook fastest. You even begin to dream in flavors. You wake one morning certain that you tasted roasted bark in your sleep. And so, you try it. It's terrible. But it's yours. And when someone else takes a bite, grimaces, and grins, you realize something even bigger. Your fire isn't just making food. It's making ideas. It's giving people time to be curious, to rest, to laugh, to be more than eaters, runners, survivors, to be something human. The fire isn't just heat anymore. It's habit, ritual, memory. You know its moods now, the way it breathes, the way it sulks when fed too fast, the way it flares with a bit of resin-rich bark. You talk to it. Others do, too. Not out loud, necessarily, but with gestures, with care. It's strange how quickly this new world has formed around a single crackling center. Every night, the group gathers without needing to be told. They bring what they have, roots, scraps of meat, a shell full of berries. They place them down gently, each item passed like an offering, and the fire receives. Here's your historical fact. Archaeological fire pits dating back hundreds of thousands of years often contain organized layers, burned bones, arranged stones, signs of repeated use, indicating that fire wasn't just survival, but a structured, ongoing gathering point. Where the flame burned, the people returned. Tonight, you return again. You place a few dry sticks at the center and coax the embers to wake. You don't rush. You breathe in rhythm. The fire responds. One by one, others sit. No one speaks at first. There's something sacred about this silence. A piece of meat hisses in the coals. A tuber steams and splits, exposing golden insides. Someone passes around a carved bone with salt scraped from a river rock. You sprinkle a little on your share, and the flavor makes your eyes widen. Fringe tidbit. Salt, though rare, was one of the earliest known flavor additions. Prized for taste, preservation, and ritual. You're not seasoning food yet, but you're close. Someone begins humming. You echo it. The tune grows. It isn't a song, not yet, but it might become one. Another draws figures in the dirt, curved lines, fire symbols, Human shapes with arms raised. A child points and laughs. And suddenly, you're remembering through rhythm, through ash, through warmth. You're sharing stories, though no one knows what a story is yet. Historians still argue whether cooking led directly to language. But what you're doing here, singing, miming, drawing in smoke, is a kind of communication too ancient to ignore. You notice something else. People are lingering longer. No one eats and leaves anymore. They stay. Because fire gives more than food. It gives space to rest, to bond, to think. You watch someone press two hot stones together. They hiss, spark, fizzle out, but you tilt your head. Because the thought is there. What if we could make fire ourselves? Not just find it, not just borrow it, but create it. It's not for today, maybe not for your lifetime. But it starts here, in the quiet moments between meals. When your hands are still, your stomach is full, and your brain finally has room to wander. You sit back, belly warm, fingers sticky with ash, and glance around the fire. These people, once scattered, solitary, are now a circle. The light touches every face. The smoke swirls above like a soft blanket. And your heart settles. Not because you're full, but because, for the first time, you belong to something. The fire isn't just yours anymore. It belongs to everyone now, though they still look to you to start it. To fix it when it sputters. To scold the kids when they toss in wet bark that smothers the flame. But it lives at the heart of the group. Like a quiet pulse. You've begun to notice something else. Too. Something less about food. More about behavior. People act differently around the fire. They sit closer together. They touch more. They talk more, not in words. Not yet, but in gestures. In glances. In the rhythm of shared chewing and the way two people laugh at a root that popped and sizzled in the coals. You've created warmth. Yes, but also trust. And with that trust comes attention. People listen to you now. Not just for fire advice. They follow your gaze. They copy your habits. You've become a center of gravity, and that's powerful. Maybe too powerful. Here's your historical fact. Fire control likely changed not just what humans ate, but how they socialized, formed hierarchies, and viewed leadership. Fire brought people together, and whoever controlled it often became a figure of influence. For better or worse. Fringe tidbit. In some early myths passed down from ancient civilizations, fire is a gift stolen from the gods, or a power given only to the worthy. You're starting to understand why. It changes not just the body, but the balance of everything around it. Because now, when you walk away from the fire, people look up. When you speak, others hush. And when one of the younger group members tries to start their own fire, just a small one, a test flame, there's tension. A few watch in silence. One person crosses their arms. Another scowls. You wait. Because something inside you wants to protect the flame, but not to own it. So when the small fire catches, and the young one looks up, uncertain, you nod once, and they beam. That nod? That's permission. That's legacy. That's how fire spreads, without burning everything down. Historians still argue whether fire led to early systems of control, whether those who held it first also built the roots of power, property, and privilege. But power, you're learning, doesn't have to rule. It can guide. That night, two fires glow in the clearing. One large, one small, both surrounded by laughter, by food, by rhythm. You watch from the shadows for a while, then walk back to your own pit. Stir the coals, and add a pinch of dry moss. It flares, strong and steady. You feel no fear, no jealousy, only continuity. Because fire, like food, is meant to be shared. And your real power? Was never in keeping it. It was in showing others how to light their own. You wake to smoke curling softly through the trees. The sky still lavender with early light. There are 3 fires now. Yours, the young ones, and a new one, faint, flickering, but alive. You smile. It's a quiet thing, Just the corners of your mouth turning up as you stretch and feel your bones creak with the kind of satisfaction that doesn't come from rest, it comes from continuation. You rise, brush off last night's ash, and walk to your pit. The coals are still warm. You nudge them, feed them kindling, and the fire yawns itself back to life. Others stir. One of them offers a tuber without a word. Another tosses bark to your pile. The dance has become routine. And it's beautiful. You're not the center anymore. You're one of many. A ripple in a much larger wave. Here's your historical fact. As fire use became widespread, early humans formed cooking circles and shared hearths, laying the foundation for community, identity, and even the early structures of settlement. The fire was no longer just warmth. It was home. Fringe tidbit. Some anthropologists believe the first recipes were nothing more than memory, remembering how long a root took to soften, which wood gave off better heat, which bark smoked too much. Cooking began not with instructions, but with instinct and trust. You kneel beside your fire and place a root into the coals. You wait. That's the real change. You don't rush anymore. You don't chew mindlessly, hunched and hurried. You prepare. You watch. You time. You pay attention. Because the first recipe was just patience. Cooking is no longer something you stumbled into by accident. It's something you practice now. Someone asks, with a raised brow and a hand on their stomach, how much longer the root needs. You break off a bit. Taste it. Nod. It's ready. You pass it over. Their eyes widen. That's how you know it's good. Others begin bringing small experiments. Leaves wrapped around crushed berries. Fish packed with hot stones. Bark scorched just enough to flake like salt. You're inventing food, not just eating it. Historians still argue whether cooking led to cuisine, or cuisine to culture. But you don't need books to know this. You're creating meaning. One flame, one meal, one gesture at a time. And when night falls, and the sky softens to velvet, you look around the clearing. There are fires everywhere now. Each one small, each one tended with care. You close your eyes and breathe in the smoke. It smells like home, like memory, like us. The embers glow low now. You sit quietly beside them, body tired, but not aching, not hungry, not afraid. There's comfort in the warmth, in the flicker of light across skin and stone, in the way shadows stretch long and soft, not sharp and sudden. You've come far. From the days of gnawing bark and chewing roots until your jaw ached. From the bitter crunch of raw meat. From the numb lips and the mystery mushrooms. From a world that fed you just enough to survive, never enough to rest. Now, you rest. Your hands don't just feed. They create. Your fire isn't just light. It's memory. And around you, others have caught the spark. Not just in bark and moss, but in the rhythm of sitting together. Eating together. Being together. This is where it all began. Not with fire alone, but with food that invited patience. With flames that brought faces together in the dark. With that first bite that didn't fight back. So as you close your eyes tonight, let the warmth of that fire live in you. Let it soften your breath. Let it carry you gently into sleep. The world is quieter now. Softer. Kinder. And tomorrow, when you wake, there will still be fire. And maybe something warm waiting over it.